And our time for renewal, whether that's sleep or reading or time with friends or prayer, that gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And so we're sitting there and we've been able to burn and burn again. And then all of a sudden the fire goes out.
Yeah.
And getting the fire going again that was burning bright but went out is a lot harder than renewing it by putting a fresh log in it.
Hey moms, welcome back to the Gather Moms podcast. I am so glad that you're here. And if you're looking at the screen watching us on YouTube, you might be like, "Where Kate? It's Kate. Where's Rebecca?" I know. I am sad too. I'm going to try to not let you guys down. Rebecca brings the fun, lightheartedness, and so I'm going to do my part to just say some crazy things, ring a cowbell or something in here, and do my best. But, Rebecca's back teaching school, but we have the incredible opportunity to have an expert on with us today. And I haven't told her that we're calling her this yet, but we're calling her the Mom Burnout Expert. And we have the notable Chrystal Evans Hurst with us today. Chrystal, thank you so much for joining us.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So this season we've been gathering the experts, and I know expert feels like that feels like, a big title. But we've just kind of tried to say it's somebody that knows more than you do on a topic. And so it's an area where you probably have some expertise. And just from, so many of our moms, and myself included, have been following you for years and listening to your advice and the way that you coach and speak to moms. And I know that you have so much wisdom to offer us here. So, but before we jump into that, because I do have so many questions for you, I'd love for you to tell us a little bit more about you. I know that you're a podcaster, an author, a speaker, a coach. You've been a homeschool mom. You're a beautiful child of God. So will you tell me a little bit about your calling, how you got started doing all the amazing things that you're doing now? And because I feel like, did you start out as a CPA?
That's how I was trained, accountant, and passed the exam. Correct.
But that was it? Was that the end of your financial career?
I worked in money for the first 10 years of my corporate life, but I never worked long enough in an accountant position to put CPA after my name. So I don't say that I'm a CPA, but I did pass the exam.
Well, that's a big deal.
It is a big deal. That's why I mention it, because I passed that test.
Yeah. I feel like you should be like, I'm a CPA with an asterisk.
Ask her. Yes.
There's
Yes.
a footnote.
I might do
But
that.
so you went from that, from doing, 10 years in finance to where you are today. Tell us a little bit about
Sure.
that transition.
Sure. Yeah. I was a single parent until about 30. At 30, continued working for a hot second. My husband had this great job. We was traveling to all these wonderful places that I never got to go. And I just said, you know what? Eventually, we know we're going to start a family, and we know when that happens, one of us will have to be home because you're traveling. I don't think that you're traveling and I'm at work all day is the ideal if we could do that. So I quit so I could go to places like Japan and Brazil and London. We had a great time. And then shortly after that, we did start adding other children to our family. Our blended family, 2 girls, we gave each other the gift of a girl on our wedding day. And then we added 3 boys after that. I accidentally ended up homeschooling because my oldest daughter had some learning challenges, and I had a lady in our church who said you should homeschool. And I was like, I don't want to do that because homeschoolers are weird and they wear all the same clothes and they all play instruments and they have their own band. And I don't want to do that. So I thought I would homeschool her for a year or two to kind of support her and then put her back in school. And we just never did. So now I am a stay-at-home mom, homeschooling mom, got like this much of a taste of freedom. I enjoyed that. I'd always wanted to be a mom. But I also missed my paycheck and missed my title and missed my bonuses. So I wanted to cultivate the gifts that I knew that I had. So I stayed involved with my church, with the music ministry, and I'd always loved to write. So I kept writing. And I was writing on a blog, 2005, 2006, Blogspot. And eventually I kept hearing about podcasting. And that happened right about the time that my dad, who was writing Kingdom series books, had written a book called Kingdom Man, and he wanted to write the book called Kingdom Woman. And he said, I'll do the heavy hitting. You just write the stories. So I was thinking, I don't have time for this. I have college and kindergarten happening at the same time. But he said, don't you have a blog? And I said, yeah, but it's like mommy stuff. It was just like random stuff, me writing. He said, let me have my editor take a look at it. And so a lot of the material that's in Kingdom Woman today came from a blog that I was writing that I had no idea was going to be
Whoa.
in a book, but I was just cultivating something I enjoyed, which is I love technology. I love learning things. I love figuring things out, and I love writing. So I had been writing since 2005, 2006, started the podcast because I was struggling with kids in college and kindergarten and getting a book out the door to keep writing. And I thought, if it takes me 30 minutes, and 30 minutes, if I can write 500 words, but in 30 minutes, I could talk, and that would be 7,500 words. I could do much more content producing a podcast and then transcribing it and, pulling some things off of it. So that's why I started podcasting. And I've been podcasting ever since. And then the same thing happened in 2020, 2019. People were saying, podcasting is great, but it's hard for people to find you. So you should go on YouTube because then the Google algorithm will help you. And I was like, oh, the whole reason why I started podcasting is because I didn't want to be on camera. And so
Girl, wait a minute. Can we talk about that?
can
Can we
we
talk about
talk about this?
Listen, that was us too. And our whole like first 3 years of podcasting, we just got to roll in here with a ball cap on,
Correct.
no makeup. And then all of a
Correct.
sudden people are like, excuse me, you have to have video so we can be on YouTube and you can make reels. And it's like, are you kidding?
Yes.
That's so much more work.
It's so much more work. And so, but because I'm a sucker for growth, I was like, okay. So I had been practicing streaming live and doing all these things. I had not done it, but I had practiced on unlisted. So the Monday that we were all shut down from COVID, I was like, well, if there was ever a time to go live, it's today. Well, I was only planning on doing it that one day. And then people said, hey, well, can you come back tomorrow? Like, this was fun. So I came back the next day. And then they're like, can we just do the whole week? Because, of course, we didn't know we'd be shut down as long as we were. So I said, okay. Well, I went live every day for 3 months. And I had this little bitty membership that, 3 months after that, mid year, had 1,800 people in it. And so it just created this whole other thing. So,
Wow.
yes, I'm a writer. And I always say I'm a writer first. And actually, even before that, I'm just an encourager of women. I love Bible studies, but I also sometimes read the Bible studies and want the writer of the book or the Bible study to like come down 10,000 feet and like, okay, but now tell me what to do. Like, what, what did that mean I was supposed to do with my kids or do with my husband or do on my job or do with money? Like, give me the specifics. So I have a heart for encouraging women, but practically discipling women. So that, Psalm 90 says, Lord, teach us to number our days. Okay,
Mm.
great. But how do you make an ideal week so that you can establish rhythms? How do you create an ideal day? You have 24 hours in a day. You're always passing out at night. That probably means that we could do a better job of managing our time. So I like to get in the weeds with that. And I've been able to do that as a writer, as a speaker, as a coach with the membership that I have, and with the podcast that now via video goes out via video and audio and all the places.
No, and your sister circle stuff is awesome. I want to double click on two things that you said. Number one, so do you sing as well?
I do. Yeah.
Listen, I don't know what God was doing, but when he created the Evans family, he was like, I'm just going to give a triple portion of giftedness to this entire set. Cause like I've heard, I know your brother that like leads worship and stuff.
Yeah.
Do both of your brothers sing?
They can't, of the four of us, Jonathan is the least of the singers, but he can sing. He can sing.
Okay. Because I feel like I saw like a reel or something with Priscilla and your other brother,
Yeah,
like
Anthony.
Anthony going toe to toe on little like riffs.
Oh yeah.
You guys, yeah, God just did not, he gave with both hands. He gave with both hands when he gifted y'all, which I think is amazing. But the other thing I wanted to double click on was when you said that you just started this blog because you knew you had something to share and you just faithfully sat down and just started to do it, and that God used it. So I would like for you to share with our moms, because I have people come to me, which I'm sure you have people come to you, and they say, how did you create this ministry? How do you have this podcast? How, I feel called to be, to have influence and to teach and to share. And so often, Chrystal, I'm like, well, are you being faithful where God has you right now? Like, are you, if you feel called to teach, is there a small group at your church you could teach? Could you, if you have a daughter in youth ministry, could you be doing her, discipleship group? Like, are you being faithful where God has you, or you just, do you want the dark side of this is, do you want the like notoriety? Do you want to be known, or do you want to be faithful? And so I just wanted to ask for you, do you get the same question? And what would you say to a mom who's like, I feel like I have a gifting to be used by God, but I don't know when the timing is.
Yeah, 100%. I'm like, God has given each of us, and I talk about this briefly in a book I wrote 8 years ago called She's Still There. And then this particular chapter, this topic kept coming up. So that chapter has now become its own book, and it's 100 Days to Discovering the Gift of You. And the principle is we each get to gain a perspective on our lives by looking at, and GAIN is an acronym, our gifts, our abilities, our interest, and our nature or our personality. With what God has given you, are you stewarding, developing, stirring up, the Bible says, the gifts that God has put in you? So there are things that, yes, you want to do. That would be interest or passions. But there are gifts, things that God has given you. And you normally realize what your gifts are because other people call them out. They're common to you, but other people will say, girl, you're so good with details. Or girl, you walk into any space and you just make it look amazing. Like you have
Mm,
such a gift when it comes to putting colors or looks together. Or somebody may say, um, you are such a great communicator. What did God give you? Because sometimes we are coveting other people's gifts and we're not stewarding our own. Looking at your abilities are things you cultivate. So you can cultivate gifts and make them, as someone would say, you can sharpen your axe. Or you can just learn how to do stuff. Like none of us is born knowing how to play the piano. We might be musically inclined. That would be the gifting. But the ability is I took lessons and I learned how to play the piano. So we can develop skills and get good at things. Interest are your passions, and then your nature is your personality. Are you an introvert or an extrovert? Does the room light up when you walk in? Or are you more of a one-on-one conversationalist? And if you can just look at what God has given you or what you have been able to steward and grow by his grace, and look at what lights you up. Are you doing that? Point blank, period. Because yes, you can speak and teach, and that's great. But if you are aspiring to a stage and a mic, and like you said, you don't have a Bible study that meets in your home, or you're not teaching at your church, do you really want to steward what God has given you, or do you only want it dosed out in a certain flavor?
mm,
If there in the Bible is full of people who stewarded things where they were, and God had a plan that they did not even foresee, like Moses and his passion for his people. Well, he acted out of passion and killed somebody. And then God had to go and let him go to the backside of the desert so he could learn, create an ability to
yeah,
steward people
that's
with a
great.
gifting,
Yeah.
with a heart for the people. But Moses never thought, I'm going to take these people out of Egypt. That was not, the plan. God has a plan for each one of us. It's usually a plan that eyes have not seen, ears have not heard, what the Father has in store for those who love him. God has a plan. His thoughts are higher than our thoughts. His ways are higher than our ways. So if we spend too much time trying to figure out what the outcome is of that plan, we'll be in trouble every time. What we're supposed to do is be good stewards. As Luke says, he who is faithful in little, then he can be trusted to be faithful with much.
Mhm.
So it doesn't mean don't dream about the much, don't pray about the much, don't desire the much, but you've got to walk in obedience and honor and good stewardship of what you have with what's right in front of you. And I
That's
think
beautiful.
that's the mistake a lot of people make, because we rush our own development and our own process of growth. And the way to have strong character is that you cook the character in a crock pot. And when we rush at the pace of culture, we can get where we'd like to go, but then we are not actually ready for the pressure, for the challenges, for the stress, for the criticism. We're not ready. And so I would just say, I thought I would write a book. I thought one day I would write. And I thought that would happen when I was 60, because I figured by then I know which of my children I can use it as illustrations and which ones I should not talk about. But I was not aiming for that when I was writing, when my kids were small. I was just being faithful to my love of writing. So I would encourage any woman: aspire, dream, think, plan, ask. But in terms of what you do well with what God has already given you in the space that He has provided to operate in.
Listen, that was a word. I don't know who needs to hear this, but just press 30 seconds back. Hear it, let it run again, because in case you missed any of that, I mean, everything that you just said is so fundamental. And I mean, this really wasn't in my talking points with you, but I'm just thinking about the women who are on the other side listening to this, and they know that God has called them to something. Um, but they're at home with littles, and they're like, what is this supposed to look like? And they're in this season, kind of like Moses's back 40, that middle 40 portion of his life where he's out just being faithful where God has him. And those are the developing years. Where would Moses have been if God had called him in that moment after he killed that soldier or whoever was, beating the Hebrew slave? If that had happened, then he was not ready in his character to be able to lead in that way. And so anyway, that's beautiful what you said, and I hope that's encouraging. I know it is to a mom. So I want to talk a little bit about burnout. And we talked about all the things that you do, and so I'd love it if you were just really honest with us. And have you struggled with burnout along the way, and what has that looked like for you?
Oh yeah, 100%. I one am an achiever. It doesn't matter if you give me the Myers-Briggs or the Strength Finders or if I do Enneagram, they all say the same thing. I'm a firstborn in every sense of the word. I love being a straight A student. I'm a people pleaser. What is the 100? Is there bonus points? Can I do that? So I am wired to make A's, and but everybody has limits. And so even though I am a pretty high capacity person, I'm not a napper. I'm not wired that way. I mean, as I get older, I might be, but um, the reality is that we all have a capacity. And what I've found is that everybody will hit their capacity. People that are high achievers tend to run into it like a car going 60 miles an hour, running into, a concrete blockade.
Yep.
Um, we all know when we're getting tired. Um, we all know when we're getting tired. We all know when we're feeling overwhelmed. We know what it's like to feel stressed, like we can't keep up. I mean, any woman alive knows what that feels like.
Yeah.
But when it comes to burnout, the question is, do you realize when it's just not a hard day, but it's when it's the tenor of your life? It's kind of like the description of depression. How do you know if you're depressed? Well, we all have bad days, but when you find that the tenor of your life is that you no longer want to do the things that you've always wanted to do, there's no joy in the things that have brought you joy before, and that is the temperature, the ongoing temperature of your house. When you find that you constantly can't keep up, when you constantly don't have the energy, when you constantly don't have the ideas, um, when you don't have the excitement, then you got to ask yourself the question: did I go past my boundaries?
Yeah.
And that may occur for high achievers by the block concrete wall, but that also it occurs for women who love to pace themselves. And you just are looking at these children that you prayed for, and you're like, I love them, but I just want to leave them for a solid 3 weeks. And I don't need them to check up on me. I don't need any babysitters to call. Keep them alive. Then the lackluster approach to life can be an indicator, because
Yes.
even in those years when your kids are little and it's hard and you are tired, I think every mom also knows what it's like to be in those years that are tough, but have the moments of, I'm so grateful that I get to be these kids' mom, and I'm so
Absolutely.
grateful that um um that I get to have a place to put them during the day before I come home, and I'm with them, and we all know what it's like to feel the gratitude, the gratefulness, the excitement of motherhood. But when you constantly are dry, empty, low energy, and for some of us, burnout and depression may go hand in hand,
Yeah.
frankly. It's a case of the blues, it's the blahs, it's um Burnout means I don't have the energy to do
Yeah.
what I've always had the energy to do,
Yeah.
and I
That's good.
can't find it
Yeah.
anywhere.
No, that's good because I was just thinking about, burnout. I wonder where that word came from, but or that term because we use it, and moms click on it immediately. They're like, "Yeah, that describes how I'm feeling." But you think about like a fire burning, and
Yep.
that's moms. This it's this fire burning. There's this constant activity, but when you get to the point where the fire has burned out and there's nothing left there. There's no heat, there's no zeal, there's no activity. It's that what you're saying. It's that lackluster because truly as moms and as children of God, it's a good thing for us to go to bed tired. We want to know that we gave our all that day. So that's not it. What we're talking about here is something different. It's this just nagging constant won't let up and things are not good. My littlest listens to the Other Moms podcast and I said, I was talking about burnout one time, and I said, I know I'm burned out when I have the feeling that I want to drive away and go to Mexico.
Correct.
And so my daughter came into the kitchen the next day after she heard the episode, and she goes, "Why do you want to go to Mexico?" I'm like, I know you don't get it, but I know when I've pushed it too hard, when I get this sense like I'm about to run away.
Yep. And if we've ever looked at the news and said, how could that mother leave her children? That's how. When you gave the example of fire, I'm thinking about, the fireplace. We can put in our wood burning fireplace, we can stack it, and we've got this special like stove where it has the door like the old school fireplaces.
Cool.
So we can burn a group, some cord of wood and in the fireplace for a really long time without adding anything. Um, it actually works where the wood creates fire and the gas that comes off of the fire gets rerouted and gets burned again. So that it makes it longer that way. It's called a combustor or something weird like that. But eventually you have to add more wood. And so what moms get really good at is not only burning through our resources, our mental, physical, emotional resources, which we should, like you said, parenting and living a good life. You should get to the end of the day and have done what you're supposed to do and rest well. We are really good at the second burn. We will run on fumes and run on coffee, and what we burned the first time, we'll come back around and burn it again. And we may burn longer than our husbands or our girlfriends or like, our single girlfriends may be like, girl, how do you do that? We can burn and then burn again. But eventually,
Yeah.
you have to put some renewed resources in there or the fire goes out. And if we're not good at renewal, which sometimes we're not because we feel guilty about making time for ourselves, or literally we can't. We've got a husband who's in the military and he's traveling, and so we're the only one who's on, or we don't teach our kids how to rest while we rest, or we don't teach our kids how to work so we don't have to do everything, or we never laid down the external volunteer commitments as our kids got older and got busier. And so we're not recognizing the signs of the changing seasons. And our time for renewal, whether that's sleep or reading or time with friends or prayer, that gets smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller. And so we're sitting there and we've been able to burn and burn again. And then all of a sudden the fire goes out.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
getting the fire going again that was burning bright but went out is a lot harder than renewing it by putting a fresh log in it.
Listen, I genuinely just got chills. I think that is so true. I don't know if you have a husband that like is like mine's a little bit of a pyro. Like on a cold day, like he wants to sit out at the fire pit outside and he'll just burn. And that man just stares at the fire all day and watches it. But what you just said is so true because there's all this new energy to get something started. Like for him to get the fire started, there's all this work that has to go in. But for him to just maintain the fire, it's minimal effort. And so what you're saying is very true. Okay, so I want to drill down a little bit on this concept. So you mentioned a whole lot of good reasons why we get burned out. People aren't helping, we've taken on too much, we're not letting them help. And then sometimes we're just in a circumstance where there are things outside of our control that have happened and there's mitigating factors that we have a husband that is overseas or something like that,
Yeah.
and we don't have the help. But I wonder too if we could look at that. I think also, besides the external factors, I think moms that struggle with burnout, there's something going on inside of us that is unchecked that's resulting in this burnout. What would you say that is in us?
Well, one of those things is that motherhood for many people has not been deemed as being enough. You've got to, while you're raising your kids, get a doctorate degree. And while you're raising kids and working full time, you're still supposed to volunteer on the 3 committees. And while you're doing this, I mean, there are societal pressures that double and triple down on what we should be doing with our time. There's also, even though there's a lot of great stuff out there that validates the role of mothers and the role of a present parent, there are still this unspoken pressure. Like, what did you do? You went to college, got this degree. Are you using it? And so I think there is pressure that we put on ourselves or that we accept. We live in a society that, even though we greatly hear about the value of a present parent, we still are feeling the pressure of it's a race. Like, and we look around and we're like, well, she's doing more than I'm doing, or she's able to do what I'm doing, or sometimes the race isn't against other people. It's the pressure we're putting on ourselves.
Mm.
Um, and we live, especially in Western culture, where it literally is how much can you build, how fast can you go, how many extra resources can you stack,
Mm.
and we are allowing ourselves, frankly, to be led by external motivation. We really have to check that, because
Good.
we have to ask ourselves the question: am I satisfied with the investment in my children I'm making? Work at home, not at home, whatever you're doing. Am I satisfied? What do I feel like I should adjust or change based on my relationship with my husband and what we want together, based on our responsibility to God? But don't have other people in that conversation. You have to assess that and then keep that in front of your mind when you scroll through social media and you see that they took their children on a backpacking journey through Europe over the summer. Okay, well, I have not been to Europe yet, with or without my kids. You have to choose to scrap. And then you go back to what was on my wall with my relationship with my kids, our family's dynamic, what was on our wall, because that is the measure. We have a big problem with measuring ourselves against measures that are not even for the same people, same family, same economic structure. Um, we we put ourselves in a position where we're racing. But, my son, when he was little, when we were in track, he would run, and he would always run and look to the side and look over his shoulder. And he would run and he would look to the side. And we were like, you're going to lose races just because you keep looking to your side and behind you. Like, that takes energy. You would be so much better off giving your all, running towards your finish line, and let the chips fall where they may with everyone else. Still to this day, this is my child who is very like, what are they taking? What class are they taking? Like, that's going to trip you up every time. And it'll trip us moms up too,
Yeah.
because we cannot keep up with someone else's pace. We don't know what their boundaries are. We don't know what their gifting or their support is like, but we will try to keep up with them and burn ourselves out in the process.
Yeah, that's beautiful. So I feel thankful that God's done this to me, but I get an eye twitch when I start getting overwhelmed or burned out. And it's really like the kindness of God, because he's like, Kate, like it's almost like he's poking me in the head, like, ma'am, you've gotten things sideways again. And so I've asked him to make me more aware, like, okay, God, we have a signal. I got it. Can you make me more aware? When that eye twitches, could you help me to know what is causing that? And so it's so interesting. As I've done that, what I notice is that I'll twitch and I'll stop my brain and go, rewind. What were you just thinking about? And every time it's a thought, I'm thinking someone else is thinking about me and how I'm doing.
Wow.
And that is what is causing my burnout and stress, is I'm so concerned. Do other people think I'm doing a good job? Does my family think I'm doing? And so what you just said has been game changing for me too, to stop and go, my race is not their race. I am called by God. The approval I'm seeking for, by God's grace, I already have. And so I can rest in that. I'm not looking for anybody's approval, and so I can just walk in what he has called me to do. But everything you just said, myself included, we are all, I think, feeling so much of that. And social media only just puts, gasoline on that whole problem.
Yeah. 100%. And I think that we have to be aware of what we're consuming and be aware of how those consumptions make us feel. There's not a problem with feeling jealous or feeling behind or feeling overwhelmed or feeling sad that you're not somewhere that you'd like to be. There's nothing wrong with feeling um, insecure and wondering if you could do better or thinking about whether or not you're doing a good job with your kids. Feel the feelings and then figure out what's causing that.
Yeah, that's good.
Because you've got to be able to take an honest look and say, I'm feeling insecure because I'm comparing my family to this other family. I am feeling really anxious because I'm comparing the fact that I have not finished my MBA, but I started it. And then once you can identify based on the feelings, what is underneath the feeling, now we can figure out what we're going to do with it. Am I feeling anxious because I really spent the last 2 days scrolling social media? Okay, I probably need to put my phone down. Am I feeling anxious because I didn't finish my MBA? Well, guess what? There will be a season when your kids are older and you can go back and finish it.
Mm-hmm.
So like knowing what the issue is will help. But we don't even stop to know the issue. See, that's the problem. We just keep going, doing all the things, making sure that we are checking all the boxes, making sure that we're acceptable in our circles. And then we have nothing left.
Yep.
When all of those emotional things they are pain points where the Lord gave you emotions. While emotions shouldn't govern you, they should guide you. And your emotions are telling you the story of the state of your mind and heart. And if you can listen and then say, how did I get here? Let me unwind. That's the beginning of living content and beautifully in your own skin.
That's amazing. Okay, so let's talk about that a little bit more. Let's say we've got a mom who she's listening to this conversation and she's like, well, dang, I resonate with everything these girls are talking about. I just thought yesterday about getting in my car and driving to Mexico, my eyes twitching. I'm comparing myself to everybody else on social. She's hearing all this and she's knowing there are embers left. What is a good first step for her today?
Oh, that's so good. I would say ask for her to ask herself um this question. What do I need? What do I want? And whatever the answers are to those questions, as quickly as you can, go get it. So, what do I need? Well, I just need to talk to somebody. I feel really alone. We all know someone. Pick up the phone and say, hey, I really am feeling alone. I just need somebody to talk to. Do you have 15 minutes where you can just shoot the fat? What do you want? Just acknowledging that is half the battle. I want some time to myself. So the next time you and your husband have a conversation and you're talking about your marriage or you're talking about your family, you have words. Hey, the other day I found myself really feeling just low on energy and burned out. I think I need some time to myself. I would say ask yourself those questions and then seek out the answers. Don't say, well, nobody's going to want to do this for me. Or, the last time I called my mom, she didn't come over to help. Or, we're just in a bad financial position. I could never. No. What do you need? And what do you want? And on one or both of those, take action.
Okay, so the mom that's listening to that, and I don't know where this came from, Chrystal, but this is something we hear a lot, is asking herself those two questions feels selfish. Because moms, we give out of ourselves, and when you think about your own needs and what, where have we done that? Why does that feel especially I think as Christian moms, why do those questions feel selfish? And what's the wrong thinking there?
Well, the wrong thinking is that I'm ungodly if I think about myself. I'm supposed to be humble and I'm supposed to be a servant. And those things are true. But so is Jesus, and he left people to go pray. Mm-hmm. I mean, he did not take all 12 disciples up on the mountain with him. He didn't lay his head on all the disciples' chest. He made some decisions. And you, just like your children, who are God's children, you are God's daughter. And think about that as a parent. Like, You can have one child that tends to be the more sacrificial one, and then you can have another child that tends to be the mean one. But you're looking at your children and you're thinking, I want each of them to feel my love. I want each of them to feel like they had a turn. I want each of them to rise to their giftings and their capacity. I want my children to have a good life. So what does that mean that you do sometimes? You see one child getting more and the other one that's quiet all the time. You may tell the first child who's getting more, no, sit down, let your sister do that.
Mm.
She hasn't had a chance. So you are fighting for your children to have an experience of value and love. What makes you think God does not want that for his children too? That if you are one of the children, if one of your children says, but mommy, I can't, or mommy, I'm tired, you're not going to go, well, you should. Like, look at your sister or your brother. You're going to, with compassion, be like, well, how can we help you? God is a God of compassion. He is a father who loves to give good gifts to his children, which means that if you're burnt out, if you're exhausted, if you're doing too much, if you're running out of steam and running out of fuel, you serve a God who's like, hey, I don't want you to be the only person getting the short end of the stick here. So I'm so grateful that you're serving your sisters and your brothers in the Lord, even though technically they're your children on earth. I'm so glad that you're doing that. But by the way, he's like, did you know you're my daughter too? You never stopped being my daughter the day you became a mother.
Yeah, that's
So
good. That's good. I love that. I love that. We had a speaker one time at an event we did, and she said, all these kids, they call me mom, but God still, he calls me by my name. And, I am his, and he sees me in that as his daughter, as his child. And, that stayed with me. And I think that's so true. I know that that's a blessing to a mom that's listening to this today. And it made me take a deep breath and made me think about, where do I need to consider in the areas where, I keep getting the eye twitch? What is going on there that I've kind of believed a lie about my worth, my work, and where do I need to let God come into that space so that that can get settled down and so I don't get to the place of burnout.
I
Hey,
used to make my
go
kids
ahead.
pancakes every Friday.
Yeah,
And then when I started traveling and speaking, I would get up at 4 or 5 o'clock in the morning to still make the pancakes so that they'd be moderately warm. And one time I almost missed a flight, and one of the girls in the office said, could you just move pancakes to Thursday? I mean, I was so committed to whatever I thought about Fridays and pancakes. And I didn't want to change that just because I was traveling. And it was like the Lord was like, girl, the day of the pancakes doesn't matter. You are holding yourself to a standard I'm not holding you to.
that that's absolutely it. Yes, beautiful. Yes. Okay, you're a wealth of wisdom. This has been a beautiful conversation. Tell us, I know you have an event coming up in the Dallas area and you have opportunities for moms. Will you tell us a little bit about that?
Absolutely. The Sister Circle is the organization where I provide content, but I am growing and ongoingly trying to make it a place where other women of faith can provide content and connect in a network style. So that's an online community, but every once in a while we like to get together in person. So the Sister Circle is meeting up in October 17th and 18th, in the Dallas area for a weekend of teaching from me, some live podcast recordings, and workshops focused on finances for individuals, businesses, investing, budgeting, getting out of debt, and the like. So we're gathering together to see each other's faces, to have a good time, and to double down on what we experience all the time online.
Love that. That's beautiful. And moms, we'll link to that in the show notes. Hey, Chrystal, thank you so much for your time. This was such a gift. And moms, we love you, and we'll see you next time.